Welcome to episode 257 of the Grip Strip Podcast, the Daytona Follies and F175 edition of the Grip Strip Podcast. My name is Philip Matthew. I'm your host. And as always, I'm with the iRacing Indy 500 champion, a computer genius, a gentleman and a scholar, and someone who enjoyed the weekend not that far away from home. His name is Joshua Fine. What's going on, man?
Hey, doing great, Phil. Of course, yeah. I was up at Daytona for the Daytona 500, and what an experience that was. But hate the finish, how that played out. But there's definitely a lot to unpeel and talk about and discuss. And of course, would have really wished to have been, known as both the iRacing Indy 500 winner and an iRacing Daytona 500 winner. But we'll get into that later. But yeah, as always, glad to talk about it and discuss all that happened this weekend here in Daytona.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely have many opportunities to hope to go and get another big victory. We got one, but in the GSP family, I'll take my second place in race night at Daytona on Thursday. In part because I jumped the start because I was so happy I was on pole, but and then winning a pickup race yesterday, that was a highlight of my day because then the race devolved after that. We'll talk about the 500 and that inbred pedo William Byron winning 2 in a row now, being the first one since Denny, fourth one ever, I think they said. To win 2 in a row, and in neither situation did he actually drive up there and win the damn race. It took everybody crashing behind him, but we'll get into that. Some of the other shenanigans that led to a 2.5-hour rain delay that everybody knew was coming, but they still did everything they did there. Super Speedway merchant Jesse Love winning another Super Speedway race at Daytona. Locking, of course, for all those two guys locking themselves into the playoffs on top of that. In the Truck Series race, Corey Heim got the victory after post-race inspection, but the Henderson Motorsports team and Parker Kligerman, who won the race on the track, are going to appeal. His co-host on his podcast, former racer Landon Castle, said that he ran into the wall, and by running into the wall after they'd gotten penalized for not running into the wall and keeping a clean car, he ran into the wall the next time when he got a top 5 finish and his car wasn't inspected. So it tells you NASCAR's inspection procedures. And Jimmy Johnson, once upon a time with Chad Knaus saying go and wreck the back, is going to be the new MO for everybody, I think, because of NASCAR's consistently inconsistent procedures. I didn't mention the ARCA race, but I figure we'll get to that for like a brief moment with how stupid that race was and how bad the announcing was, the horrible lack of talent. The fact that after I don't know how many of them yellows, I was like, man, if I only had like $60,000 or $70,000, I could probably run that race and I could finish top 10. Like literally, like I would lose tons of money, but I could have finished top 10 in that race.
Yeah, you probably could have, honestly.
We could have put a team together like you, me, and Joe. You're the got the best fitness for the job, so you would have driven. I would have been the crew chief, and Joe's a spotter because he has better eye functionality, and we would have finished top 10 in that race guaranteed.
Shit, we probably would have just won the whole thing.
Yeah, because you already have more driving ability than 95% of the people in that race. The only person that I would question whether you have more driving ability is Elio Castroneves, but then that's a given. He's a 4-time Indy 500 champion, but he also hit everything but the lottery from Wednesday on. So, yeah, we'll get everything that went on in Daytona. Formula One will have their big F175 preview this coming week with liveries. Some of the cars have already been brought out. More will be coming out this week. We will go into IndyCar news. Rinus VeeKay will actually have a job, but Linus Lundqvist will not. The roundup will go over Supercross. Now with Jet Lawrence being out, the championship is wide open. Formula E had a doubleheader in Saudi on the Jeddah Corniche circuit. Rally Sweden took place last week. This coming week we'll have the WEC Prologue World Superbike preseason testing and the Sydney 500 for the Supercars Championship starting their 2025 season. A lot going on in the world of supercars, where even in the manufacturers race, because they're getting another OEM with Toyota, and Walkinshaw and Andretti United going over to Toyota, while 888 goes from Holden, or now Chevy, to Ford. So that'll be interesting, that whole dynamic going on this year. We will preview and make picks for Atlanta. The Tate Fogelman algorithm will be used once again, and then go into hibernation until April, or whenever the hell Talladega is. Josh, let us know what happened in the iRacing Daytona 500 and everything else going on in iRacing gaming in the sim segment. We'll call it a day. So yes, Daytona 500, we had 56 lead changes amongst 15 drivers. You had a lot of the Fords. There were a lot of competitive Fords for sure in this race. Penske, to be exact and specific. Corey LaJoie was up there in a one-off, or at least what we think might be a one-off for Rick Ware, and put himself in a position to win that race, which was not too surprising. You had also Darrell Rawls Jr. with he had a great race car all week. He was in a position there and it got taken out late. And there was a bunch of guys there. You had 8 cautions, 47 laps, multiple weather related, a couple of debris cautions that led into big wrecks. So there was that as well. Or one debris caution, and then they had the stage 2. Stage 2 was pretty clean. Then another debris caution, and okay, so I can't even say that debris cautions were caused, but they were there, and they usually don't call them. So then you had 2 big accidents to end the race. Over 3.5 hour 3 hours and 40 minutes of red flag due to rain delays, and then the big wreck there on lap 197. You had Martin Truex Jr. in what might be his last cup race of his career getting taken out in a big wreck 70 something laps into the race, including Alio. He got hooked in the left rear by Ross Chastain, his teammate. Briscoe was a part of it. Jimmy Johnson, we'll talk about them in a few moments. You had Kyle Busch, which was one of multiple incidents he was involved in, and Herbst and Martin Truex Jr. Then you had an accident before that included Hamlin, Zane Smith, and Josh Berry. But those were the incidents leading up to what took place in the last 15 or so laps of the race. 15 laps or so. 15, 20 laps. And in the end, Austin Cindric and Denny Hamlin were racing for the victory, and the top five essentially cleaned themselves out, and that allowed William Byron he won stage one, and then ends up being a two-time Daytona 500 winner. First repeat winner since Hamlin. I didn't know he dumped Aaron Blaney, so I'm hoping Ryan Blaney runs him over at some point this year. Tyler Reddick finishes second for 2311. Jimmy Johnson, starting tailback, the 7-time Cup Series champion, qualified on speed for this race, came from tailback, finished third. Considering the speed his cars had, especially Eric Jones, who should have won his dual race on Thursday. All three cars from Legacy finished in the top 12. Chase Briscoe, who qualified on pole in his first points race for Gibbs in the 19 car, led 4 laps early and then got swallowed up and was able to come back late in the race, have a chance, finish 4th. John Hunter Nemechek with a top 5 there. Then Alex Bowman, who started 38th in this race, finished 6th. Ryan Blaney, Austin Cindric, Justin Allgaier driving the JRM Traveler Whiskey, number 40, finished 9th. And Christopher Buescher finished 10th. In the end, there were 24 cars on the lead lap. Denny Hamlin, who was going for the win there, ended up 24th. Corey LaJoie was also in the mix there, 22nd. Cole Custer, who, depending on who you ask, might have triggered the deal. That last wreck finished 21st. Kyle Larson was 20th. Clyde, 15th. Go through some of these other guys. Yeah, I mean, Stenhouse and Pizza Face were involved in the wreck before that. Stenhouse, both former winners of this race. Stenhouse ended up 18th, and Logano 35th. Kyle Busch was amongst the many people who weren't happy with Joey Logano. But, you know, in the grand scheme of things, they gave William Byron a stage win, but it doesn't show that he won a stage.
I think that, well, I don't know where you're seeing that, but I thought it was Joey Logano that won first stage.
Yeah, I'm looking down here, and it shows that Joey Logano, but they're giving him 10 points for stage 1, so there must be a misprint. They messed up the scoring NASCAR did, so good job on their own statistical page, so congrats to them on that. Yeah, I mean, there's the rain delay that, you know, we knew it was coming. They had a great photo op for those who were interested, and him going and talking about stuff when there's, you know, serious weather issues going on in Kentucky and other states. But we needed to have him drive around like a dope for the second time in 5 years around the racetrack and then lead into 10 laps of racing and a rain delay. But after that, once the rain delay was over, they got to racing, and there was decent action. Obviously, 56 lead changes, but when it comes down to it, you can race pretty properly for a good amount of the race, probably about 90% of the race, but that last 20% devolves into a demo derby. Ryan Preece flipped over again. And I forget who it was on Twitter that was like, there's always somebody in their generation that is the one that flips at every race. Like it used to be Ryan Newman, Rusty Wallace was that guy, Elliott Sadler. Now it's Ryan Preece. That seems to flip over everywhere. He was outspoken in his post-wreck interview saying that We keep on flipping these cars, and one of these days somebody's not going to come out of it all right. And it's true, but NASCAR has proven over the years that they don't really care. And this is proof positive of that. That there's issues with the car. There's been numerous issues with this car, but they insist on not fixing them. They also don't care about the lack of kind of driving ability or talent that people utilize or don't utilize at the end of these races, destroying cars. I think they said 33 of the 40 cars they said 33 of the 40, so that was also an incorrect number because there's 41 cars in the 500. So that would probably be 34 or 41 were involved in an incident at some point during this week. And then you add the 4 that went home.
41 out of 45 were involved in some kind of incidents of the 45 who were injured.
Yeah, so that's ridiculous. I mean, you're talking about 4 drivers out of 45, and you're saying they're the best stock car racers in the world were involved in some sort of incident. And this is supposed to be the biggest race of the year. It paid, like we were joking around, like when I was at the sim racing place, and I'm like, when we were talking about running Daytona during the race night, we're like, I'm going to the back. I don't care. I'm letting everybody else wreck. That's literally what this is now. You can go for stage points or probably be a wreck. That's probably part of it. Then they're like, well, if you took away the fact that it's a guarantee playoff spot, then they wouldn't do that. No, it's a Daytona 500. They'd still destroy each other to win the race because it's a Daytona 500. There has to be a penalty of some sort in terms of damage, in terms of something happening to the car or the driver itself for making bad pushes, bad runs, falling out of the race. Once it comes to the end of the race, it doesn't matter. You're only going to fall back as far as the end of the lead lap. There's no penalty for driving badly. And that was
Crashing.
proven. Well, okay, fine, crashing, but if your car's still rolling, you can get all the way back to the finish line. And what is the point? At that point, at the end of the race, you've lost, 20 points? That isn't that big of a deal, especially if you've had stage points earlier in the day. So, whatever, you can go and have a demolished car on 2 wheels, and you went for it. Oh, I went for it. I won the day. It's like, I mean, the point is, unless you're all 12 people that are fans of William Byron are happy that douchebag won, but that race, the end of that race, last 20 laps of that race sucked. The race before that, was relatively competitive. I don't think there was any green flag.
No green flag pit stops,
which is a shame too. That also, I mean, they were doing fuel saving and they were coming out already early on the race and telling everybody they were fuel saving. Briscoe, when he was leading very early in the race, they showed his telemetry and he's literally at 50% throttle in 3 and 4. And I'm like, dude, they're already saving fuel and they started this race. And they know it's going to rain. And I'm like, they're already saving. I mean, this is pathetic. They need to either, there either has to be a move of how long the stages are, maybe, to where or they might have to, like how they do an extra stage in the 600 because there's, one every 100 laps. They might have to do one every 100 miles, to go and, I don't know about, it might cause more wrecks, but, they already wreck anyways. I don't know. The fact is, this fuel saving business, there has to be a change to that too, because all these plate races devolve in the end. You have fuel racing for 80% of the race, and then the last 20% is a demo derby. So are we really doing anything of great significance? But then that's plate racing. I'm not a fan of it, never have been a fan of it, even when one of my drivers was good at it. And to be fair, 2 or 3 people that I root for are good at it. But when you're waiting for a big wreck to happen and then you just clear through, I don't know if that really is the best way to identify um, a winner, but whatever. It is what it is. William Byron gets another 500 win. Fat fuck Jeff Gordon gets to celebrate another Daytona 500 win. Fat Felon gets to sit at his house with another Daytona 500. He cracked the side of his car too on the celebration there.
The front fender.
Yeah, he decided to hit the left front corner of his car conveniently. That was an accident, I'm sure, because everything Hendrick does, when it comes to that, is an accident. But I'll say this: at least Briscoe got a top 5 at a plate race, which doesn't happen very often because nobody ever works with him. And Justin Allgaier and the Junior Motorsports team are going to sell a ton of merch. If they weren't already, they're going to sell more merch because they got a top 10 finish out of that deal. One of the only cars that was semi-functional at the end of that race. So credit to those guys. I feel bad at the end of the day. I don't usually feel bad for either of these guys, but I do feel bad for Gumby, Cindric, and Denny Hamlin, Josh, because those two guys were there racing for it. It could have been a great finish, an all-time Daytona 500 finish that we were screwed out of there at the end. But yeah, that's Gen 7 plate racing for you these days.
Yeah, and I mean, there's a lot to unpack there, and I mean, for me, there's many levels to this. Starting with the fuel saving. I mean, I don't know how do you get around this. I mean, you're saying let's just make 4 stages, and I say let's just get rid of the stage cautions altogether and just let them run naturally according to their fuel strategy and whatever. And I mean, I was kind of wanting to see maybe okay guys, run 100%. Like if everybody's gonna run 50%, why can't a group of guys just go 100% and then try to break away from the field, which I feel like that's possible, because if they're going to be okay, damn it all to hell, let's just go 100%, and try to break away, and then you have a bunch of other guys that are okay, their crew chiefs are going to be no, just stay at 50%. You'd think that, there'd be some variation, but no, everybody's going to do the whole same thing. And now we've got it down to science because we've got the pit crew guys standing on the when they do the fuel stop or fuel only stop. Now you got the pit crew guy taking out the tablet and just holding down a timer for the drivers to go out and go once the fuel's done. So which is pretty interesting. I mean, I'll admit. But I mean, to me, it's the stage problem, or the stages need to be, cautions need to be eliminated. The cars just produce too much drag, and that's why they're also doing the fuel saving. And I mean, yeah, it's interesting, but to me, it's just it's an illusion. It's an optical illusion when you see them all running hard. I mean, remember last year at Talladega, they were all running 3 wide and whatnot, but then they were just, you're all just running kind of 50% and whatnot. So, I mean, I want to, if we're going to be fuel saving, I want to at least make, okay, yeah, they showed the graphic and everything. And I guess it's hard to kind of convey with, everybody at super speedway racing kind of running the same speed anyways. But, I want to, when I see it, I want to know that they're fuel saving. I feel like there have been races in the past where in speedways where they did have to fuel save, but it was where it kind of came down to the end of it where everybody was in a draft and it was just kind of waiting for the time to go. Now they've, kind of scienced everything together and just, coordinated all of it. And now it's not really unpredictable. It's, fairly predictable. Okay, we're saving fuel until this time. I mean, it's almost like a road race in a sense, right? But yeah, I feel like even then, like, when people are trying to save, when people are going harder, and everything, and so from that aspect, I mean, I don't really know how to fix that there. I mean, there's a lot of other things I don't think we really know how to fix, because the other part of it is the crashing part, and I mean, we've been crashing forever at these tracks, right? But I feel like it's different now than what it was 10 years ago, and feel like, from when, Dale Jr. was dominating on super speedways, it was a lot different then. And it was like, you still had green finishes. I mean, they still had cautions, but, they figured out the guys who were up front knew how to get there to win. And you didn't see all these, lucky winners. Like, it's either they had a really good car, like Michael Waltrip had. I mean, okay, like, those are only 4 times he ever won was on a plate track, but he was just in an era where Dale Earnhardt Incorporated had the best restrictor plate cars, and he was able to win, be up front. There was a point where Hendrick Motorsports had the best restrictor plate cars with, Jeff Gordon, 2005. The 24 car was really dominant on the super speedways. Tony Stewart, like, he was really dominant on the super speedways too. And he still, went out and won a bunch of those races. But now, like you said, now it's kind of just a luck thing, because, William Byron was just kind of right place at the right time, because all the other guys took themselves out. And that should be the outlier. But it feels like, now that, he was just kind of got lucky. Last year was up front, but kind of got saved there by the caution, because Ross Chastain decided to go for a desperation move right at the line, and everything. And then, the year before that, Ricky Stenhouse, who, I mean, of course, he's already kind of knows how to restrictor plate or to super speedway race, but that one also ended under caution because they couldn't figure out how to get back to the line, and get back to the line and finish cleanly. And Michael McDowell, like, that's another one. He kind of started that wreck in 2021 and came out on the other end as the winner. So it seemed it's beginning to more look like a random number generator when it comes to figuring out how, like, who's gonna be there at the end. I mean, that's why we have the algorithm, because it's literally kind of just literally the algorithm. I mean, it's literally why we call it, because, I mean, it's started as a joke in the Chuck series, but now with the way that these cars race in the Cup series and how this turns out, can easily just do RNG, which is that basically out of all the set of numbers, randomly pick this number. So that's what this is. and we see how this goes, and how they continue to race each other, and people are just too aggressive, because, one, I think when you're fuel saving, you're not really, like, trying to go for the lead, and you kind of see the lead changes, they all happen from, like, the top couple of guys. There's nobody really, like, trying to, like, make their way up to the front to make something happen, and really there is no incentive either to do it. But like, you don't really see guys, like, trying something, and then once you get to the end, now you got all these guys that are up front who, if they haven't been eliminated, they're up there, they don't have the experience. Like Cole Custer, like, I think Cole Custer just didn't have the experience to hold his line there and try to maintain position, and at least try to make it through the last corner before all the contact could have happened. Because, I mean, it's really anticlimactic when things happen on the backstretch, and at least if you make it to the final corner, you make it through, you can start to see things happen. You still have those final last couple of yards to see how that could play out. But they didn't even make it down into turn 3. So Cole Custer, I think, kind of started that last wreck and didn't know how to put himself in that situation. And on the other hand, Austin Cindric, who's actually a really good super speedway racer, and I think it's because he has a road racing background. That's what I think, because in road racing you have to be very patient. You have to know when to attack, when to make the move, and I feel like the way he races on super speedways is, very patient. He, if a move's not there, or there's an attempt to go block, but it's, not really there, he's not going to make that aggressive move. And I would say put himself in position to win that race. But of course, other guys didn't really have the same idea. And I mean, I thought it's either going to be him or going to be Denny Hamlin possibly winning that race. And if that move didn't happen, that Cole Custer did, then possibly we could have had a 3-wide finish there with William Byron and possibly, I guess, Custer in the middle lane and Denny in the bottom lane, possibly. So, yeah, there was just a lot that happened in this race, and like I said to you, last night. I mean, this is literally just like an iRacing race, because that's how in iRacing, that's probably about like 60% of the time on speedways in the next gen. And I'm pretty sure in every time I've ever run the iRacing Daytona 500 and made it to the finish ended up looking kind of like that. So that's, from that perspective, when it's not all that different than a sim race, I feel like there's a problem, and that's certainly part of it. And when drivers, they don't really have the understanding of what to do in the last closing laps, and forcing a hole that's not there, like Joey Logano and Ricky Stenhouse, or drafting a guy too hard, like what Custer did to Chris Bell, which launched Ryan Preece up into the air, which we'll probably talk about that later. But just a lot of things happened. I think just from the mentality of the racers now, because of the points, because the cars are effectively tanks from the perspective of not getting hurt allegedly, and the pavement being so smooth where we really haven't seen any real fall off that has significantly affected the cars. I think all of that kind of combines to just produce what we see, where all these races just end up being crashes, which I think ultimately diminishes the value of the race. And I mean, the allure and I guess prestige of winning this race is all back on kind of the history of it, not so much within the last couple of years and everything, like I said, turning into basically a no better than what you see on a sim race, and effectively an RNG there.
And that's, I mean, it's great points you brought up in terms of the randomness that what we've gotten to. And it's a shame when you consider they call it the Super Bowl of stock car racing. And it's akin to the Super Bowl of football ending on like the college football overtime procedure. Like something that's completely, random and generally not a great determining factor of how which team was better. You're just basically holding on for dear life and praying. You don't have to have the fastest car to win the race anymore on a super speedway. You just need to be able to either last or make the right push at the right time or whatever. It's not really about talent, unfortunately. And that's, I think, part of the frustration that comes with it. You brought up Ryan Preece, and he took off, and I figure, this is another piece of another place where you can talk about it more in detail, Josh, because, I mean, we've had issues with cars turning over for years, forever. For as long as I've watched NASCAR racing, there's been cars taking off on super speedways. Having the roof flaps that were developed in part by Roush and others, and then you had Dean Sickings making with Jim Downing making the safer barrier. Those two things have been good, but in turn NASCAR has gone backwards with the car in the sense that the Gen 5, the COT, might have been the safest car they ever had. And that kind of moved over into the Gen 6. Now they've made the Gen 7, and that car is a flat bottom car that is a tank that has retired Kurt Busch, has injured other people, and is bad in terms of concussion possibilities. But then also when it comes to taking off, it doesn't take a lot of air, and it just takes them getting like the yaw is the term, the certain types of yaw where with the right wind, because there was a decent wind yesterday, and turning around not even perpendicular, you're going to go and take off. And of course, Ryan Preece, being the lottery winner that he has been on super speedways, they paved the whole entire infield. It looks ridiculous. They don't spray the infield with like fake grass or put turf. Don't do any of that. They paved the whole entire infield. He still figured out a way to take off. And I think they have, you talk about it, Josh, you also said it early in your initial thoughts about the high drag of the cars. They don't seem to want to change anything, which is a fundamental problem. What are some solutions in your mind with this car that could not only, keep the car down, but also would, taking spoiler off, would going and taking some of them wickers that are on the sides, with the front splitter, making it less active. Would some of those things, are those some things that could help along? I mean, obviously the tire is its own separate thing, but in terms of the aero and downforce aspect of it, how can we keep these things down?
Body. I think that's the only viable way, but the problem is that I don't have numbers. I'm not, an aerodynamicist by any means, but I think, removing their underbody is kind of what picks these cars up, and or the underbody is what picks these cars up and propels them in the air like that. Because this is similar to when an IRL car or Indy car back in the 2000s would, if they touched wheels and caught air, that's kind of how they would flip. Or if you're an IMSA guy, you remember probably the 1999 Le Mans with Mercedes.
The Mercedes.
Yeah, that had that aero flaw that where if they got behind somebody and then immediately they pulled out and had clean air, they just picked right up and flipped over into the forest or whatever. And then I think that also happened in Petit Le Mans in like 2002 or something like that. But the stock car like that, I think that's why it looked kind of weird, because I think it could have flipped either way with the old car, right? But I think just the fact that this new, or with the next gen car, where it caught air and then it was just kind of floating, like pointing upwards like that for so long. I think it was kind of because of that underbody, and it kind of it basically looked like an airplane taking off the runway, going into the air, but and then just kind of lifted off the ground like that, which I mean it's for sure flipping differently than the old car, because the old car had to kind of go rear end all the way up first and then it would flip. So it's certainly flipping a different way, but still the problem is like when it lands. I think that's what Preece was talking about in his thing, where how he said there's got to be a change or someone's going to get seriously injured or killed. And he said all he could think about was his daughter, which I mean that's pretty damning, I think, in terms of the safety and everything, because and Harvick, he mentioned it as well, the way he mentioned it throughout the entire weekend, like whenever you have a pretty hard impact, it's always when the car is landing back on the ground is where it really just hurts you. And I mean, not even just that, but like some of the wrecks that Elio had, where the car was bouncing up, onto the ground, really is what makes you sore and all that, and you feel it kind of in your spine. So that's certainly a problem there, as well. But yeah, I mean, I think removing the underbody somehow, they got to figure out a way to re-engineer the car so it's not dependent on the underwing, because everything's going through the underbody to reduce downforce being generated up top. Now it's going through the underbody and it's getting funneled out into the rear diffuser. And so now they're already people want to get rid of the diffuser at short tracks and stuff. Well, I mean, why don't we just get rid of it altogether and just see how does it run without the underbody itself? If you just remove that and made no other changes, how does that remove it? And then I think the other thing is increasing the throttle response and stuff. Just just open and back up so they just run at 200 and stuff. Because now all these cars, they're tuned to single file. They're tuned at going 185 or whatever. Now they're not that fast anymore, and so now they're all kind of stuck together like that. So again, if you watched Denny Hamlin's show today, talked about the entertainment of it to make it look good on TV and all that stuff, and that's what it's all about. It all kind of just looks good on TV, and I mean, in my opinion, I've said it before, just and kind of alluding to it here, or what I just said, but just remove the go unrestricted completely. Just remove the spacers, remove the plates, whatever. Just go completely unrestricted. If we're worried about the cars flying into the air and hurting people in the stands, then let's just tear down the grandstands and build them up 10 stories tall, like what you see at that one suite in Homestead. That's just because they removed all of the stands, right? And then all that's left is like that one suite up top. We'll just have the grandstands start up there and just have like a solid concrete foundation like underneath it, and then the cars won't fly up that high enough to hurt people and stuff, and then just let them go unrestricted at like 240 or whatever and see what that happens. But I mean, no, I mean, because that's still turn around and probably hurt somebody that way too with the drivers. But they have to do something to get more separation. I don't know what that is. Like, I mean, I think it starts with getting rid of the underbody, at least for preventing the flips like that. But, there's also the fact, they're all close together. The bump drafts don't take. I mean, they do, but they don't really handle the pushes that well, because the steering doesn't really. I think the steering doesn't really like the push. When you ever receive a pretty hard push from that, makes the car really unstable and you lose control with the steering box as it is. So I almost think you just need to go back to the drawing board and rebuild the next gen car and make a new one. But I kind of go back to there's a clip from like 2005, and Mark Martin, I don't know if you saw this on Twitter or anything, but I think it was after the 2005 EA Sports 500, and Mark Martin was in the big one in that one, and he kind of just looked at the camera and said, the only people that can make a change are the fans. And said NASCAR can't make a change, or they won't make a change. The drivers can't do anything about this. The teams can't do anything about this. It's only the fans. And that really stuck out to me, because I'm like, well, that's true, because the fans keep coming back to it for this stuff. And I think if the fans are like, we're not going to watch this anymore, we don't think that this is legitimate, then I suppose maybe NASCAR would be forced to make changes, because then they'd be losing people and losing viewers and fans and revenue, all that stuff. But I mean, there's a whole bunch of ways we could go. I mean, there's the tires. We could even go back to the let's put on softer tires that wear out faster and make people have to start lifting in the corners and stuff. And I think also getting people to lift, because if you don't have downforce that's being generated through the underbody, then you'll lose grip easily and have to lift. So I guess there's a bunch of ways that we could do this, but certainly, and that's the other part of the history and the allure with all of it being random number generator, right, with seemingly right now, if they try to change it up to make drivers have to lift and stuff, I think you'd see a little bit more skill, a little bit more strategy. I mean, there is strategy with the fuel saving, but it's rather an illusion more than anything. And I think you'd kind of understand what's happening and have a good idea. Okay, this guy like really knows how to speedway race, and we kind of do see that. But I think you'd see it on a much larger scale if they had to have handling significantly affect the cars like they haven't in quite some time.
Yeah, and that's a great point because even in like Dale Jr.'s heyday with his 8-car Bud car, they not only had the fastest car, but it handled better than anyone's too. So he was able to do things nobody else was able to do. And that was the same with MW55 in that time. And you brought up other examples in those early 2000s in the Gen 4, the end of the Gen 4 days with the Twisted Sister cars. But then on the super speedways, they had the really smooth molded front ends. And they were able to bump, but the fact is the bumpers were much higher. You had the bumpers were much higher than the rear bumpers, but to go and bump drive, you weren't able to theoretically bump draft. You weren't able to like go and connect or slam draft, or else you were going to cause a wreck. These cars, there's rigidity. I think the word is rigid. Everything with this car is rigid. The way that it hits, the way that you hit it, the way that everything is too stiff. Go and use that as a meme for whatever you want to go and isolate that word for. But in terms of this car, when we go to COTA in 2 weeks, this car is meant for that. This car is not meant for this. It's not really meant for oval racing. And it never has been. It looked cool, but in the grand scheme of things, they missed. You had a clean sheet of paper, which is so great about NASCAR, and only NASCAR and I guess IndyCar, at a lesser extent, can figure out a way to have a clean sheet of paper, have an opportunity to incorporate anything they want. You already knew the safety aspect that worked in a lot of ways. And then completely missed the boat with it. I mean, that's only NASCAR can come up with something, and IndyCar really could come up with something like that. And when you're demoing 90% of the cars in a field at the only race where you're going to have more than a full field, that's just ridiculous. I mean, honestly, is a joke. But everything like Josh has said in terms of explaining what this car is and what it does, but then also what these guys do. It's a perfect storm of clusterfuck. That's literally what we're dealing with here. And you're determining the biggest race of the year under that format. And it's embarrassing, honestly. And I mean, it used to be a thing that, people couldn't win the 500 because, you just weren't lucky enough, or you weren't able to have the right car at the right time or whatever. That there was that. Now you just have to have the golden horseshoe up your ass and keep yourself out of every wreck. So it's the opposite now. So you're telling me if Tony was nuts enough to jump back into a cup car, that if he just sat back and held on for dear life like Jimmy did for most of the day yesterday, he could have gotten a top 5 finish. That's basically what you're telling me they could do, and he could have possibly, with the one good push, could have won the Daytona 500. I tell you, that wouldn't have meant much to him, but it is what it is. That's where we're at now. Points are, of course, generally what the results were. The Blaney, because he won a stage, has a 1-point lead over Byron, Cindric, Reddick, Bowman. Buescher, Jones, Johnson, John Hunter, so all three legacy guys altogether. Briscoe, Elliott, Ty Dillon, Suarez, McDowell, Richard, and then a tie for 16th between Pizza Face and Keebler Gibbs. A bunch of guys a point behind that. So people who have a little bit of a deficit to have to climb from. You have Christopher Bell, 8 points back. Ross Chastain, 13 points. AJ Allmendinger, after finishing last, is 15 points back. You have Kyle Busch, 16. And then you have some of these other guys, SVG, who we think is going to win a race at some point this year. I mean, AJ is another one. Hocevar is 14 points back. Zane Smith is 20. Josh Berry the same. So those are some of the guys that have a deficit to climb over. In terms of Eric Almirillo, lovely. The results of the United Rentals 300, which ran 6 laps over their scheduled distance. There was one early wreck that took out, 6 cars, or involved 6 cars, but took out Buckshot Jones and Daniel Dye. There was a wreck that took out Nick Sanchez after, I think it was stage 2. Yeah, the stage 2 concluded. It was him and the 00 of Sheldon Creed. Then there was another small incident. Or no, that was the fucking Chris Wrong driving through Josh Bilicki and then blaming his spotter for it. And then the shenanigans started at the end of the race within the last 6 laps of regulation and then afterwards. So in the end, though, the 21 car was the fastest car by far. Hank Hill had everyone covered, won both stages, was probably going to win the race going away. Nobody really had anything for him. Then he had a rear end gear or rear end seal problem, which meant he had to park and get that fixed, which opened the door for his teammate, Jesse Love, who didn't really get a lot of stage points. But when it came down to it, these guys that were behind him really weren't able to put the moves or get the help necessary to get the job done. And then there was a big wreck at the end of the race. Allgaier, Ryan Sieg, the 42, I think, is Alfredo, and Bilicki, Jeb Burton, Jordan Anderson, Honeyman, and the 11 of Josh Williams. Yeah, the 11 of Josh Williams there. So they all wrecked there late. And then that kind of ended the whole thing. So Jesse Love, the winner at Daytona over the 2 Haas drivers, Sam Mayer and Sheldon Creed. Carson Kvapil was involved in the wreck early in the day, was able to come back to 4th. Taylor Gray, who was up front for a good amount of the day, had a chance but didn't make the move. Harrison Burton coming from 32nd to finish 6th. Jordan Anderson from tailback to finish 7th. Dean Thompson 8th. Jeremy Clements 9th. And Patrick Emmerling with a top 10. There were 18 cars on the lead lap. Last one on the lead lap was Justin Allgaier, the defending series champion. Connor Zilic was up there at late in the race. There was a bunch of people that were up there that had a chance. But really, it was an RCR benefit. It was the 21 and the 2, and as much as Connor Zilic may be poking fun at his buddy Jesse Love of being a super speedway merchant, he's locked into the playoffs, and Has a good chance to win next week at Atlanta too, Josh.
Yeah, Jesse Love is also, with him kind of being a teammate, well, is a teammate to Austin Hill there. I mean, Austin Hill had a great race as well, but Jesse Love is really turning into just as good of a super speedway racer, I think, as Austin Hill. And, I think definitely a much, much more likable guy there. But, he worked together with Austin Hill in that race. And um, probably Austin Hill would have won this race if he didn't have the rear gear failure there. But Jesse Love came out, won this race, and definitely has next week a great chance to win going into Atlanta. So could easily go 2 for 2 here in this series, starting out for the championship. So um, should have won last year, but now has a chance to go 2 for 2 in this um, championship. But there's a lot that happened in this one too. I mean, a lot of crashing, some of the same mentality kind of from the Cup Series, but which I think is more of a maturity thing in this series. But you still saw the differences. And at least Austin Hill, the way that he's able to race here in this series, and managing the lead and managing the draft, it was kind of reminiscent of the old style of before the next gen. So from that 2013 to 2018 era of speedway racing in the Cup Series, and Austin Hill had a chance, and of course opened it up once the rear gear started burning up, which was kind of interesting. The fact that things started happening to him, and that had you could see on his rear view camera how bad it looked with the oil spraying, and surprised that didn't cause an issue there. So fortunately that didn't happen, but at the same time it was just interesting to see how that played out. But um, the other guys in this race, I mean, there's still a lot of incidents, but a lot of the guys in this series that are rookies, like Zilich, like um, Carson Kvapil, they all had incidents. Last lap incident, Justin Allgaier had an issue, so our champion had an issue in this as well, trying to make moves, trying to get to the front. But this was definitely a fairly interesting race to watch. I think one other thing we got to talk about in this, the broadcast, CW. I mean, what a professional broadcast, compared to what, I mean, I'm sure you saw on Fox, which I did tune in a little bit, waiting in line there. But the broadcasts on CW definitely very informative. You got to see a good chunk of the leaderboard, unlike what we see on NBC and on with the ladder style leaderboard that they have on NBC and Fox. But very informative. All of the broadcast personalities that were in it, did a really professional job, and um, the pit stop graphics were great. All the other graphics that they used, very great. Definitely enjoyed that, and made it very, very interesting. Made it compelling to watch. So glad that that part of it was informative. And then on a side note, with the HBO Max, I don't know if you have that. I don't have that, but they had the whole broadcast as well with their streaming broadcast for the, I guess, driver cams and all that stuff. That's pretty good too. But the Xfinity series, I think there's a good deal with Xfinity that they have now, or with the CW to broadcast this series and make it interesting, make it entertaining, and really draw you into some of these drivers like Jesse Love, or like Kvapil, Zilich, all these young rookies. Nick Sanchez, unfortunately, getting into a crash there during the race. So definitely a great broadcast, and definitely a lot more interesting of a finish here in this series.
Yeah, and I mean, I totally agree with the CW presentation. It was awesome. I think one of the big pluses was the interplay between Jamie McMurray and Parker Kligerman. People talk about how great James Hinchcliffe is at what he does as a analyst, and I think Parker Kligerman, while we're about to mention him here in the Truck Series, uh, has that opportunity, has that ability too. He showed it on pit road for however many years, and I think he's still probably going to do that for NBC. But he's really good in the booth, and he has that great personality. Him and Jamie can play off each other. He can be analytical, but he can also be the funny guy. Jamie's very analytical, very straight laced. Um, and then Adam Alexander has a lot of experience now, especially on the Xfinity side. So he's a respected voice there. When you consider what Fox gives us in general, not only on the truck broadcasts, but ARCA broadcast, how bad they are, the fact that they're always a good amount of their broadcasts are from their studio in Charlotte instead of at the track. I'm not sure how many of these races they're going to be at. That they made a big thing about doing a lot of races from their new studio out in Charlotte, the NASCAR studios. So we'll see how that goes. But at track, they have great people. You have a great pit road duo in Dylan Welsh and Kim Coon. Who knows? Maybe they're fucking each other or something. And then that Carla girl that was also doing the pre, and she did some of the infield interviews. She was on Dirty Mo Media, or has been on Dirty Mo Media. So I think all of them quality people, all understand the sport, have a great connection with it. So there's a good respect there. So at least we know that the Xfinity series has been the best product for years. Now we also know that they have the best TV product by far. So at least we have that to look forward to. On a mostly weekly basis. So we'll see how that goes. Very competitive deep field this year. Road courses outside of, I think, Connors Village are going to be a little more straightforward, or a little more competitive, I mean. Because you have a lot of guys that can contend, but Zilich is going to be a big time guy there. When it was basically everyone was like SVG or AJ Allmendinger last year. Super speedways, we know the RCR cars are going to be up front, so anybody who has RCR affiliation. The cookie cutter tracks are going to be a good look at the series in general between JRM, Gibbs, and the Haas team for all three manufacturers. But we'll see that after Atlanta. Because it's another drafting track there. In the Truck Series race, the broadcast was god awful. Oh, that's good news. Luke Fenhouse going to be running. His statement is before joining Vegas live. Focus and that they would appeal. Yep. Yeah, so Parker Kligerman has been great at super speedway racing over his career, and especially in a truck. And on Friday, on Valentine's Day, he had crossed the line in first to win the Fresh from Florida 250 over the Toyotas of Corey Heim, Gio Ruggiero, who came from tailback in his Truck Series debut. Ty Majeski, defending series champion. Grant Infinger, former winner at Daytona. Those were the top five. Then you had Justin Haley, Chandler Smith, who had destroyed a bunch of cars the day before. Daniel Hemrick, Jason White, William Sawalich were your initial top 10. And Frankie Muniz, who was the algorithm pick, finished 11th. In the end, after the disqualification for the ride heights being too low, Frankie Muniz actually got a top 10 out of it, so credit to him either way. Ben Rhodes won stage 1, finished second in stage 2. Matt Crafton won stage 2. So the Thor Sport veterans had that, but they didn't have much to show for it at the end of the day. The race was seemingly dominated by the Fords. You had Chandler Smith lead the most laps in the race. But in terms of what happened at the end, Kligerman made the moves necessary to get the job done. NASCAR, after screwing him at the Roval last October, figured out a way to go and one-up that on Valentine's Day by sticking it up his butt and taking away the win in this race. Of course, he's not a full-time driver anymore, but it would be a huge win for an organization that runs limited races, shows up and brings a good vehicle when they do show up for races. Instead, Corey Heim, who's a perennial championship contender but can't close the deal, locks himself in, as of now, into the playoffs. I mean, this race, there was 8 cautions for 33 laps. There was 2, of course, the 2 stage breaks. There was 2 big incidents late in the race. There was a few smaller incidents, but then lap 84 there was a 7 truck incident, and then at the end of the race there was a 3, 6, 7 truck incident there as well. So most of the demolition took place in the last 15 laps of the race, which is on cue. Rajah Caruth, brutal for him in his run for a championship. Starts out with a 30th place finish. You got some of the other guys. You got Kraft in there. Some rookies in with Mozak and even Tony Breidinger, Dawson Sutton. And yeah, I was trying to look for. Yeah, Frankie Muniz was driving, the 33. I forget what Rayum had, the 2. And then I guess nobody failed to qualify. Oh, okay. So I don't know where. Oh, Jason White drove the other. Okay. So, yeah, Rayum Racing actually had a decent night. That's something. I mean, hell, even Norm Benning got a top 20 out of it, so credit to old Uncle Norm. Heim, Ruggiero, Majeski, Enfinger, Haley after the disqualification. Chandler Smith, Daniel Hemrick, Jason White, William Slot, Frankie Muniz, your top 10. I mean, I guess we can go a couple of ways with this, but I would personally, it's Parker Kligerman and the Henderson Motorsports team for me. They run limited races. They've been around a long time. They were around at the start of the Busch Series back in the early 80s with the Food Country USA sponsorship. They got Spike Coolers, of course, with Scott Borchetta sponsoring them this past weekend. Kligerman making a name as a TV guy, but still racing limited races. They went out there and won that race on Friday, and basically opened the door now where every person who wins a race is going to hit the wall because of what took place for Parker Kligerman, unfortunately, Josh, where he got screwed. Honestly, I don't know which one's worse. I think the one at Charlotte is equally as bad because I would have allowed him to advance into the next round of the playoffs, knowing he was going to be done, winning in the Xfinity Series. But winning at Daytona is huge, even with the stupidity that comes with it at times. That would have meant would have been his 4th truck win of his career. He's won twice at Talladega for 2 different teams. He's won for 3 different organizations in his career. And That would have been huge for that organization, but NASCAR saw fit to say no.
Yeah, it was definitely confusing because like going out of the race, I mean, oh yeah, happy for Parker Kligerman, that was awesome and all that, and all of a sudden a couple hours later we see the report that they've been penalized for failing post race inspection, and like what? And I text Joe like, hey, did you see that? Because he was at the race, and I was like, did you see they DQ'd him? And I was like, what? No way, So that's unfortunate for that team because obviously they're not a full time team. Parker's only doing this part time now, effectively retired from full time competition, and so disappointing to see that win get taken away from him there. Just wish he could have not been penalized and held on to it, but that's the way it is. And now Corey Heim, who probably not a name we would expect to win a super speedway race, but certainly a guy we'd expect to win, now all of a sudden in the running for the playoff, now already qualified. So I mean, which is not surprising, but probably would have expected to see this in about 2 weeks, him winning, or maybe next week. So unfortunate that they got screwed, and Corey Heim came out on the other side of this as the winner. But again, it is what it is, and of course, backstretch crash on the final lap, much like on Sunday, and that's kind of what we expect for the Truck Series and all that. But it is what it is. Of course, a lot of incidents, of course, but gotta see how this will play out throughout the rest of the season. One guy I was impressed with was Frankie Muniz. Of course, we don't really know how long he's going to be in this. Like, I think he has full-time funding this year, but could be wrong on that. And seems like they need sponsorship for him, but great to kind of see that. I mean, that's kind of one of the more, I guess, feel-good storylines of this race was seeing him go from being an actor in Hollywood and being at the track in the 2001 Daytona 500, and now in 2025, 24 years later, coming out here and finishing top 10 in the Truck Series, which is pretty remarkable considering his career and all of that leading up to this. So great for him and that. But for the guys like you mentioned, Raja not having the best start to the year for him. Fortunately, getting caught up in that accident with 20 laps to go, 18 laps to go there. Unfortunate because I think he's a pretty good guy on these tracks now too. So yeah, definitely unfortunate ending there with Parker not getting the win. Because definitely he's one of the more likable guys, and from what you see on his broadcasting side, it's definitely a guy that's somebody it's easy to root for, and somebody that does a good job.
Yeah, it's just unfortunate, but that's NASCAR for you. It seems convenient, and they usually aim at teams that don't show up all the time instead of the teams that show up every week. I don't know why they think that that's a good thing, because when you have teams that don't have the resources to show up all the time, but they try their hardest to show up when they do with a good equipment, they're the ones that you're trying to get them into getting more funding, getting the opportunity to go and show up every week, versus teams that show up every week and suck, which there are teams that do that too. But that's NASCAR for you. I would be remiss if we didn't make a quick mention about that ARCA clusterfuck. Butterbean Queen won that ARCA race essentially by default, because I think he was one of the only ones that were left. His his teammate in the race for the weekend was Elio Castroneves, and he got hit multiple times, but he still was able to finish fifth. Got destroyed by AJ Moyer after the race, so that was convenient. There were only 13 cars on the lead lap, and I don't know how many of them actually finished. It looks like maybe 20 of them, 22, possibly 20 of, yeah, maybe 20. I don't know. Lawless Allen running full time for the championship, and he got wrecked at some point. You had most of this field were involved in wrecks. I mean, you had Catherine Legg, who was a victim of circumstances on a lap 3 wreck that was caused by, a January 6th who had no business driving in the race. And then Dad Moffat, who's another, daddy's money loser. That's living off of the fact that his grandfather's Mr. the King. Then you had the wreck that first of multiple wrecks that Amber Balkan caused that took out Kyle Steckley. And then that also there was another wreck that took out what's his name, Cletus McFarland, also known as Garrett, his actual government, Garrett Mitchell. Didn't know what his actual name was, so they were showing him by his actual name, but then they were calling him by Cletus McFarland.
So that's his real name?
Garrett Mitchell is his government. Yeah, his government is listed here. Craig Bracken got fucked up in one of those wrecks. I think Amber Balk, that second wreck, which that involved Cletus McFarland because of Amber Balkan being a dumb dolt. And that also took out Becca Monopoly. I'm like, there's no way that's her name. And I wanted to see what the spelling was, so it's not like the game, but Takuma Koga, the field filler, Brayton Laster got high-sided on turns 1 and 2 after something broke. Corey Day, Kyle Larson's buddy, Hendrick Motorsports junior driver now, Isabella Robusto. She's somebody, I don't know if she's going to run all season, but she seemed to have good pace. But that race was an embarrassment to stock car racing. Not only was Jamie Little's god-awful announcing, she was terrible on Friday, even worse on Saturday. You had that. The broadcast was terrible. They went to commercial with 8 laps to go. They wrecked 3/4 of the field. I mean, it's an embarrassment to NASCAR racing that's what they put out there. But, and then we have these inbred dipshits who have money, but couldn't drive a hot nail through snow, yet they're allowed to go and drive race cars. It's just a sad commentary on our society that these people are allowed to. I mean, it's not just procreate, but be allowed to actually drive. That's really what it is. Freaking god awful dipshits that some of these guys are, but oh well, it is what it is. We will move forward to F1, the 75th anniversary live reveal. Or the MotoGP did it here a week or so ago in Indonesia, so now they're going to do it at the O2 Arena in London. That will, and they will reveal the liveries for all the cars. At least I don't think all the cars for 2025 will be out there. every driver, with their new uniforms or team principals and stuff like that. So that'll take place. I guess, Josh, the question would be, outside of Lewis, what do we look forward to in terms of the reveal? I think McLaren and Williams have brought their cars out, so we'll get to see those defending constructors champions. But what else should we look at in terms of this? Because of it's a unique way to present the field compared to many decades of these teams slowly trickling out their cars and their liveries and all that stuff.
Yeah, it's unique because I think it seems like it's tradition for these teams to kind of all slowly reveal their cars and like, oh, Mercedes revealed their car today, and oh, next week Red Bull's going to reveal their car. And now, I guess for this ceremony, they're all revealing them all at once. So I guess that's kind of interesting, and wonder if they're going to do them one by one during the ceremony. So we'll see. But I mean, I think other than Lewis, I mean, I guess it'll be interesting to see what the Red Bull livery is going to be this year, because I feel like Max wants some changes here because it's the same livery almost every year that they have. So will it change here this year? But it would be interesting. And Max has hinted during one of his sim racing streams that he's admitted to really looking forward to the unveiling of his car, and he said, "I am very happy with our livery. I'm just saying I'm extremely excited." And he said it's a little bit of orange, a little bit of blue, so we'll see what that actually means here Tuesday night here. So I guess that's more of Tuesday afternoon here in the United States on the East Coast. So yeah, we'll see what they do there. And I mean, we've already heard, Williams has already, I guess, unveiled their car, unless that's not the actual livery that they're using. But yeah, it'll be exciting to see what, these teams bring out. And I guess Mercedes, I guess that'll be interesting as well. Their first livery car since Lewis has left them. So maybe that'll be interesting. But yeah, other than Lewis, I mean, I think just I guess, like, we have this 75th anniversary, like, what's all the ceremonies and all the pomp and circumstance going to be like this year for F1?
Yeah, first time we can get a lot of these guys on with the media to go and say what they're thinking or what they're feeling before they really go and test their cars. We don't really know what the pecking order is going to be. Of course, simulator work's been done and stuff, but we'll see what the turnout is, especially for Lewis being in Ferrari colors. So that'll be a big one. How does McLaren respond, knowing they're now the constructors champions? Phillips trying to win 4 consecutive world championships. Or has he already done that? 21, 22, 23, 24. So win 5 consecutive world championships. Which would be unprecedented. Because other than what I think Schumacher did, 2001, 2, 3, 4, yeah. No, Schumacher was the only one that's ever done that. Lewis should have had that, but So we'll see what happens. We'll talk about it more next week because they're going to start, I think, getting into some of the more details of the cars and stuff as we go along. Go to IndyCar. The big news of the week last week was Rinus VeeKay getting getting called to take over the last seat. So it's gonna be him. It'll be him. It'll be Rinus VK driving for Honda for the first time, and he'll be teammates with Jacob Abel this year. So that'll be a big change. I mean, it's typical Dale Coyne having new drivers every year, but getting two young drivers, a driver who has won a race in IndyCar, and then you have Jacob Abel brings a budget, but also is showing has some skill, so it's something to be interested in for sure. I mean, let's talk about that. For Rinus VK getting a reprieve after getting fired at the last, in the last moment, in a sense, by Ed Carpenter, after being very loyal for many years, Josh. But now he gets to drive for Dale Coyne. They've been somewhat competitive at times. They do have speed at some of these oval races, so that's a possibility for them. And then they have an opportunity here and there. Rinus VK is an aggressive driver. It might be the perfect combination of team and driver at this point for the last spot on the grid.
Yeah, for the last spot on the grid, could be interesting here. Now we finally have a seat filled here, and Dale Coyne Racing has 2 drivers now, so at least now we don't have to joke about them not having a guy yet, but in their car. But now they've got him, and yeah, he's been pretty aggressive. He's a good qualifier at Indianapolis, so this will be interesting to watch throughout the year. Kind of a guy, last minute change in there. So now we'll see if he's able to kind of make something happen. Which with a team like Dale Coyne, small team, not a lot of resources really, and VK, a guy that can be aggressive at times. Could be a team that's willing to take risks and try to get good finishes, or possibly, like, if there is a scenario where they could go for a win, could be interesting there. He's definitely a guy where it's like, well, you don't really have anything to lose, so they could be willing to be relatively aggressive in terms of their strategy, and even some of his driving style compared to others, and being able to make risky moves there. So yeah, we'll see how that plays out, but glad to see him stay in the series and still have a ride. And now the field set, and I guess 2 weeks now we'll be talking about IndyCar and St. Pete.
Yeah, it's something we can definitely look forward to now that the IndyCar series is going to be back, and Fox, with all their promotions and stuff, hopefully they can do a better job with their IndyCar broadcasts than they've done with NASCAR for God knows how many years, but we'll see about that and talk about it in more detail as we get closer to it. Let's move over to the roundup here. Supercross last weekend was at Ford Field in Detroit, and we'll get into the results in the 250 main. For the 250 East, Levi Kitchen, the winner over Max Anstey and RJ Hampshire. Tom Vial was 4th, so 4 manufacturers in the top 4, different manufacturers. Nate Thrasher was 5th, Chance Hymas 6th, Austin Faulkner, Carson Mumford, Max Voland, Henry Miller, your top 10. Cameron McAdoo ended up being dead last. The points in the 250 East, Max Anstey has a 9-point lead over Levi Kitchen. Tom Vial is third, 12 points behind Anstey. Chance Hymas is fourth. Nate Thrasher, fifth. RJ Hampshire, this solid finish, moved up to eighth after a terrible race in the first week of the championship there in Atlanta. So there is, so that's the top 5 in points there. 250 East. And then you have Arlington, which I believe is round, it's a triple challenge. Oh, BMX triple challenge. Okay. 450. I was trying to event schedule. All right, so that's not what I wanted. This schedule, Arlington is a West race. Okay, so it'll be a Triple Crown event, and it'll be a 250 West race before the East comes back for Daytona, and then Indianapolis East-West Showdown, and then Birmingham, Alabama, which will be, they'll have a break between Indianapolis and Birmingham there. So, all right, they'll be racing at Arlington. The winner of the 450 main event was Cooper Webb, of course, for Yamaha, over Ken Roczen. Chase Sexton was third. Malcolm Stewart, coming off of his first career victory, was fourth. Justin Cooper, fifth. So Yamaha, 2 of the top 5. Jason Anderson, Justin Barsha, Dylan Ferrandis, Aaron Plessinger, Justin Hill, your top 10. No Eli Tomac, so I guess Eli Tomac got hurt. His injury was too much to bear. He wasn't able to ride. Looking through some of these other guys, so Eli Tomac, his chances in his final year, he falls back. Last 2 races, of course, after a great start to the year, only 5 points at Tampa, and then didn't race. So Chase Sexton tied with Cooper Webb right now. Sexton has 2 wins, and Cooper Webb got his first win last week. And then Ken Roczen is 16 points back in third. Jason Anderson's 21 points back in fourth. Malcolm Stewart, 26 points back in fifth. So it's starting to become, it's basically a 2-rider battle. Cooper Webb, who won his championships for KTM against the guy that replaced him, Chase Sexton, as we move forward. And there'll be, as I mentioned, triple challenge event at Arlington and Dallas and Jerry World this coming weekend. The Formula E championship was at Saudi. They had a rookies test as well in Jeddah. The results of the races on this past weekend. In round 3, Max Gunther started on pole and had the fastest lap and won over Oliver Rowland. So DS Penske over Nissan, and then Neom McLaren with Taylor Barnard. So Nissan getting 2 drivers there on the podium. Mahindra with Nick DeVries, Jake Hughes with Maserati, your top 5. John Eric Verne, Eduardo Mortara, Sam Bird, Antonio Felix da Costa, Stoffel Van Dorn, your top 10. In race 2, Oliver Rowland, the winner, over Taylor Barnard, who started on pole for the first time in his career. Jake Hughes had the fastest lap. The top three did not. They just swapped around their positions. Then Jake Dennis from 19th. This was a regular event. It wasn't the first race of the doubleheader. They had to do the pit stop with the recharge. This was a regular event. Dennis, Cassidy, your top five. Van Dorn, Vern, Verline, Dick Tantrum, and Eduardo Mortara, your top 10. The standings before a break before they go to Miami for the next round in a few weeks' time. Oliver Rowland has a 17-point lead after 2 wins and a second in the last 3 races over Taylor Barnard. Antonio Felix da Costa DNF'd in the second race at Saudi. Falls back to 29 points behind. Max Gunther 4th, Jake Hughes 5th. It's a relatively close battle. There's da Costa and Gunther for 3rd. Then you have from 5th through 10th are only separated by 3 points. Hughes, Vern, Evans, Verline, Dennis, and DeVries. The team's championship, Nissan is in a great battle. A point ahead of Neo McLaren, 4 points ahead of Tag Heuer Porsche, 5 points ahead of DS Penske. So that is a much more intriguing battle. The teams, Nissan's got a huge lead over Stellantis, just 47 points. Stellantis is the Maserati team, and then I forget who the other team they power is. There's 2 cars on DS, DS, and then I think the Maserati, I believe. Then Porsche is 3rd. So, we'll move forward from that with Saudi. Then we go to Rally Sweden. Go over into WRC and Rally Sweden, which saw, perfect start with back-to-back wins. Efren Evans, Takamoto Katsuda, Sweden results, the final result sees Efren Evans win over Takamoto Katsuda by 3.8 seconds, which is something. Thierry Neuville, defending world champion, was 3rd, 8.1 seconds back. 11.9 seconds back, and then Tanak was 4th, Cali Rovampera 5th. All those drivers were within 33 seconds. Martin Seix for Ford was 6th, and Sami Pajari 7th. Gregoire Munster was 8th in the other Ford. So that was all the Rally 1 cars. The best Rally 2 and the winner of Rally 2 was Oliver Solberg. And then over a bunch of guys with names that I can't pronounce. The championship standings heading into the next round of the championship, which will be in Kenya. Efren Evans up by 28 points over Ogier and 30 over Cali Rovampera, because he had the maximum amount of points you could get in one round. I think it's 35. So credit to Evans on that sweep. Thierry Neuville only 4 points behind Ogier. Tanak is 7. Takamoto Katsuda is 8 points back, and then Adrian Formeau is 12. So you got those guys all in their own separate battle. In terms of the drivers, they have a co-driver championship. Who knew that? And then manufacturers standings will be Toyota with a 48-point lead over Hyundai there. The WEC Prologue will take place this weekend. Endurance Championship. That'll be the you got the Prologue coming up, and then United. Oh, okay. So yeah, you have black and orange. 12. News. Yeah, so they showed Ferrari. They made their livery reveal. You also had United Autosports with their reveal. 2 weeks. Yeah, so high caliber field, 18 cars in each category, 13 major brands. And Mercedes AMG will also, yeah. So that will, the action will get underway. Qatar, and then that'll be on at the end of the month. So we'll preview that next week. But the prologue will also take place at Qatar. That'll be the first round of the championship. Then you'll have Imola in April, 6 hours of Spa in May. Then they'll have Le Mans in June before they go to Sao Paulo in July. Lone Star Le Mans will be in the start of September, and then they'll fly to Fuji the end of September and end their season in Bahrain. The opening round entry list, they have, of course, the Aston Martin Valkyries will make their debut. 2-car team there, 2 Porsche Penske's. You have the Toyotas, the Jota Sport Cadillac duo, then BMW, WRT, Alpine, Ferrari with their 2 factory cars, and then the private, the 3rd car, AF Corsa, of course, running all of those, Peugeot, with their 2 cars, and then Proton Competition with their privately entered Porsche 963. Then in the GT3 category, you have 2 cars from multiple manufacturers. You got Aston Martin for Racing Spirit of Le Mans. Then you have Harder Racing, of course, that are running the prototypes as well. Ferrari with AF Corsa, they'll run those cars as well. The WRT BMW team running, of course, in both classes. TF Sport with their Corvette team, and United Autosports with McLaren, Iron Lynx with the Mercedes, Proton Competition with Ford, Dakotas ASP with the Lexus RCF, and then Iron Dames will be running the Porsche, and then Manti will run Porsche as well. So that's the World Endurance Championship. We'll get in more detail next week for when they have their 6 hours at Qatar to start their season in earnest. The World Superbikes have preseason testing going on, and Kawasaki shut down factory team in 2024. So yeah, okay, so that's already happened. Phillip Island will be the start of, they'll have their preseason testing, and then the first race of the World Championship coming up this weekend at Phillip Island. So if Boligo leads Ian Known and Petrucci in red flag free practice 3, 8 riders within a second. Boliga leads the World Tour in Australia. Rascaglioka crashes. Ray declared unfit, so that's tough. There. Bimota for race weekend. Lozen Bassani. Moto by Kawasaki. And Axel Bassani. Ray to a sideline for a season opener. Honda riders there. Gerloff, Texan find his groove on a Kaz Kawasaki, so right, yeah. Because he sells a new bike and a new team, so he seems comfortable. That's a good thing for Garrett Gerloff trying to make it on the Kawasaki. Just out of, Toprak Rascaglioku, your defending world champion. You got Petrucci, Kerlakona still on Honda, Nicolo Balega on the Ducati, Sam Lowe's for Mark VDS Ducati, Alvaro Bautista, Andre Iannone for Ducati, Team Patago 11, Alex Lowe's, Bimota by Kawasaki. That's a Petronas Honda, Team Scott Redding for Bonovo, Ducati, Axel Bassani got there, Tito Rabat for the secondary Yamaha team, Andrea Locatelli, factory Yamaha team, Argater, Remy Gardner, and then you have Michael Vandermark for BMW, Johnny Ray, of course, who's not going to be able to start the season, Xavi Vieja for Honda. So yeah, Garrett Gerloff being, I think, the only rider of a Kawasaki on the whole grid. So that'll be something. A bunch of Ducatis there. Got a couple of Beamers, a few Yamahas. So we'll see how that all works out, and we'll talk about it next week on the GSP. And then we go through preseason testing and Phillip Island round 1. Sydney 500 for the Supercars to start their season. Let's see here the drivers and teams. So yeah, the Red Bull Ampol Racing team. Brock Feeney, of course, they're running Chevys for the last season. They haven't debuted their liveries. They're not showing any of the liveries. Oh, that's lovely. Then you have Cam Waters, Thomas Randall for Tickford Ford, Chaz Mostert, Ryan Wood for Walkinshaw Andretti United, Penrite Racing, Matthew Payne and Kai Allen, also Fords, Brody Kostecki and Will Davison for Shell V-Power Racing Ford, Erebus with Jack LeBrock and Murray, and Matt Stone Racing, Nick Percat and Hill, Premier Racing with James Golding and Richie Stanaway, then Brad Jones Racing with Andre Heimgardner, Bryce Fullwood. You have David Reynolds and Anton Di Pasquale, Team 18. Then you have the other Brad Jones with Macaulay Jones and Jackson Evans, James Courtney and Love in the Ford. So every team takes the cover. Yeah, because they haven't shown. So these are all the liveries will probably be updated here in the next few days. But Oh, so new DJR livery, Kostecki number will be on there. So yeah, so they'll be racing here, Sydney, the Sydney 500, which will, of course, that the Sydney Motorsports Park, also known as what was Oran Park or not Oran Park. It was I'm trying to remember what Sydney Motorsports Park used to be called, because they used to hold the Australian Grand Prix, Eastern Creek. There you go. It used to be the Australian Grand Prix track for Grand Prix motorcycles. So they'll have 3 races making up the weekend for points. Solid track, very difficult. Challenges all aspects of the car. So we'll see how the start of the season goes. They'll be under the lights too, so it'll be really cool to see. All right, so we will move forward to the preview of this weekend's races at Atlanta. So that will be the I'll go and I'm trying to bring that up, Jayski. So we will start with the Freight 208 Truck Series event. 33 trucks for 36 spots, so nobody going home. Michael McDowell will be running in that race along with Kyle Busch. You have you also have who was the other one that they said over there? Yeah, Luke Fenhouse will be in the race along with Akinori Ogata. So Sawalch in the 1, Nathan Bird, who's running the 0-2, I think full time. Josh Reum in the 2, Breidinger in the 5 for Tricon. I mentioned McDowell and Busch, Grant Enfinger, Haim Garcia, Tanner Gray, Ruggiero, Ankrum, Hemrick, Keith McGee in the 22. Sutton, Muniz, Riggs, Smith, Mills, Curry, Honeycutt, Stuball, Luke Fenhouse, Raja Caruth, Boyd, Andres Perez de Lara, Connor Mozak, Crafton, Justin Carroll, Jack Wood, Majeski, Rhodes, and Ogata. So in terms of the picks last week, I went first. Josh, I'll let you go first, and then you'll come back after me with the algorithm. So let us know what you think, who you think winner and wildcard is for this weekend's Truck Series event.
I'm going to go with, I want to pick Kyle Busch, but I just don't think he can win at Atlanta. As much as what we'd like to see from him, I don't think it's going to be as easy as what it was, when it wasn't repaved. So I'm going to go with Corey Heim going 2 for 2 here and actually finishing first this week. So definitely think that will happen. Wild card for this, I don't know. That's not one. Connor Mozak. Let's see what he can do.
Solid picks there. I will go with Chandler Smith because he ran up front for a good amount of the race last week. Front Row Motorsports team seems to have fast vehicles, so it wouldn't be too crazy to believe that they could go and do that. My wild card pick will be, I will go with I'll actually go with Andres Perez de Lara. Because unproven commodity, but in a good truck, I think it's a possibility for him to go and get the job done. So Chandler Smith to win and Andres Perez de Lara wildcard. And then the Tate Fogelman algorithm. Picks.
He's making his pick here. Let me make an adjustment.
You're on mute.
Oops, sorry. Yeah.
Yeah.
Make an adjustment here really quick to put in the right number. See in. It says Spencer Boyd.
Oh boy. Yep. That one would be something. So Spencer Boyd, he has won a race at Talladega before, so it's not out of the realm. We will go with the Xfinity at Atlanta. I'll let you start first, of course, here, and we'll do the same order. So, just a case of which RCR guy you're going to pick, I'm pretty sure, but I think it's pretty simple. But
Pick King of the Hill, Mr. Austin Hill, to win. And wild card. Go with good old Parker Retzlaff, Alpha Prime.
all right, yep. So, Paperboy, Parker Retzlaff, wild card, got destroyed on Saturday. So, see what Alpha Prime brings this week. And I'll go with Jesse Love, because why not? He had a chance to win this race last year. So they have 38 for 38, so nobody's going home in this race either. Carson Ware will make the show. Maggio there in a 53. I'm trying to see if there's any Nick Leitz in the 07. Garrett Smithley in 14, but yeah. You got Eric Almirola in the 19. Okay. So he's someone to look at. Alfredo, Massey, Poole, Taylor, blah, blah, blah. All right. So then my wild card selection for this weekend's race will be, I will go with, this is kind of but he didn't do well last year, so I'll just pick Jeb Burton. He's kind of mid, so Jeb Burton, if I could spell his name, is the wild card for me. Let's say the Tate Fogelman algorithm.
Let's see. Mason Maggio. There's something wrong here. Well, no, it's fine. It says Mason Maggio is going to come out here and win. Could happen. We may have a big crash.
Yeah. I've picked Andres Perez de Lara as my wild card both weeks. I think you've picked Connor Mozak as a wild card both weeks so far in the truck series. I did pick Jesse Love to win, so I'll take that. It will be rare. These wild card, these Fogelman picks are something.
Week.
This week, Sammy Smith was up there. Muniz got a top 10. Zane Smith had a brutal weekend at Daytona. So the last race is the Am Better Health 400 at Atlanta. You'll have 39 for 40. So nobody going home in that one. Corey LaJoy driving the 0-1 again. You got then you have the, what do they say, non-chartered cars, BJ McLeod in the 78, and then the other one they said was BJ Haley. All right, so those are the three non-chartered cars. Got Denny Hamlin with Yahoo on the car, Body Armor, Zero Sugar, and Blaney, Moose Fraternity, Chastain, Menards Delta for Cindric, Bioethanol for Bald Spot Dylan, Tidal Max, whatever that is, for Gagson, Build Submarines for Keselowski, Gainbridge, Justin Haley, Cheddars for Kyle Busch, Napa for Clyde, Seabest for Ty Dillon, Action Industries for AJ Allmendinger, Fastenal for Busher, Bass Pro for Chase Briscoe, DeWalt, Christopher Bell, Motorcraft Quick Lane, Josh Berry, Shell Pennzoil for Logano, Columbia Sportswear for Bubba Wallace, Liberty University for Byron, Aaron's Rent to Own for Todd Gilliland, Monster Energy for Herbst, City of Refuge for Zane Smith, whatever that is, 3D Systems for Cole Custer, Dollar Tree for John Hunter, Advent Health for Eric Jones, Xfinity Mobile for Tyler Reddick, Martin's Famous Potato Rolls for Richard, Arby's for Cody Ware, SAIA LTL Freight for Keebler Gibbs, Kroger Javalia Entenmann's for Ryan Preece, Group 1001 for Michael McDowell, Delaware Life for Carson Osavar, WeatherTech again for Shane Van Gisbergen, and Freeway Insurance for the defending race winner, Daniel Suarez. So, yeah, we can go for these Atlanta picks. Josh?
I'm picking... I'm going to pick Ryan Blaney to win. That's my pick. And then wild card this week, Carson Hocevar.
Yeah. That would be a wild card for sure. Carson Hocevar getting the job done. For me, I am going to I'm going to go with Dennis Hamlin as my winner. And the wild card selection will be a tough one, actually. It's kind of a reach if I go. That is a reach, but whatever. You know what? Why not Corey LaJoy? Who cares? LaJoy, wild card. He's running limited races. He has nothing to lose. Rick Ware's telling him to go and bring back the steering wheel. What does the Tate Fogelman algorithm say, Josh?
Wow, it's coming out. I mean, this is actually, well, it's a little bit more legitimate than some of these picks, but it says Josh Berry is going to come out here in the 21, which, I mean, Ford does have speed, so it's not too far out there, I guess. He's not a super speedway racer, though.
Yeah, he's definitely not a great super speedway racer. He's never really done well at it, and whether he's been in Xfinity or now in Cup, but the Wood brothers do have good race cars for these super speedways. They won at Daytona last August, so um, stranger things have happened. So would be something to see if Josh Berry can go and win at Atlanta, get his first career win there. But we'll see what happens next week and talk about it all on episode 258 of the GSP. But before that, Josh will let us know what's going on and how he did in the iRacing Daytona 500 in the sim segment. So, Josh, take it away.
Yeah, my iRacing Daytona 500 wasn't all that great, to be honest. 'Cause I got taken out on lap 142. I was in the top 10. I think I was in 10th or 9th, I don't know, but was slowly making my way up there. I mean, started about midfield, I think 20th or so, and well, it was kind of just a fight. I mean, to try to stay with the leaders and constantly trying to advance on the high side and trying to get into, get down to the inside and just ride around. But, just watching that unfold, I feel like I could have done a better job of just managing my position in line, because I felt like I was trying to go on the high line a bunch to try to make up ground, but everybody wanted to try to, as soon as they could, they try to all get back down single file and just ride around, which I guess is best, because obviously it's hard to hold it with a bunch of sim racers, hard to hold it 3 wide and stuff, and everything. And got caught up in there's one incident where definitely got caught up in and ended up having to go through the grass in turn 2 somehow, and the caution did not come out for this. I don't know how, but ended up picking up damage there, and having to get repairs and stuff. But was able to still be on the lead lap and everything, and maintain and not lose any laps or anything. So was still okay there from that aspect. And finally able to get into the top 10 around, I don't know, around lap 130 or so, because I knew it was time to start making moves to position myself for the final pit stop. And just didn't work out. I was on the bottom lane of a 3 wide situation, and there's 2 guys up top that were kind of slowing down, side drafting each other, and then they touched, and then out of nowhere, out of my view, they came down into me and put me in took me back up into the wall. So I got taken out of there, and lap 142, and then tried to get back going again, but the car was not moving, so had a tow truck. And then as soon as the tow truck timer ended, it said 0, or not 0, but it said, "No, sorry, we can't fix the car," and everything. So that was the end of my race there, which, yeah, I should have managed it a little bit better, being up front, but I guess qualifying is important as well. Let's see what else. There was one part where I was still with the lead pack, I don't know, in the, definitely I think around the top 15, and I don't know, some moron decided to try to side draft and try to stay, they were losing the high line, and they decided to try to side draft, and then that caused us to lose time and slow us down, and then we lost touch with the leaders, and we were, it was pretty annoying, because we lost several seconds, because somebody decided, instead of just falling, just taking the L and just go to the back, they tried to side draft, and then that caused the end of my group to get separated, and then also ultimately lose the draft and all that stuff. So that was annoying. And then there's other parts where you're trying to avoid somebody else's wreck and stuff like that, as usual, which managed to avoid most of it, I feel like, until I got wrecked out there. So and if anything, it was just minor stuff, if at all. What else? I'm trying to think. was something. Yeah, I was trying to help somebody bump draft. Admittedly, I'm not the best at bump drafting in this next gen car on iRacing. My style of racing I feel like is better with the Xfinity car, and certainly I feel like I shine the best, which you've seen on the 87 car. Which that's I was honestly thinking in my head, I was like, if somebody's running a private 87 league or something, or just an 87 500, I'd 100% do that over the official iRacing, Daytona 500, because then you'd actually be able to, individually race instead of, depending on the pack or depending on the help and all that stuff. So, I'm not the best at the bump drafting and stuff, and admittedly, like, being pushed, it's hard for me. I don't know why it is, but for some reason, I guess maybe it's my steering wheel or something I need to upgrade, but I've always felt like once I get pushed, it's very like it just moves me around and stuff, and it's really hard to hold on to it and stuff, and so I can only take very very little of that, and then and I always prefer to be the pusher, but I guess for some reason in this car it just hasn't really worked out, and I took somebody out on accident and just hit them the wrong way, and they hit the wall on the back stretch. Caution didn't come out somehow, but she hit them the wrong way. So, they ended up, I don't know, still finishing like 22nd because there was that many cars that got taken out, and this is on lap 142 of the race and everything. So, still managed to get a decent finishing position from that perspective. I think the dominant guys, I think they all finished a lap down as well. So yeah, a lot of stuff happened in that, and I wanted to attempt it again on Sunday, but then ended up going to the race. So which I probably could have, if I just stayed home and didn't show up to Daytona until like 3:00 or so, that probably would have just worked out for me if I just stayed home until waited until after the rains had started and then made my way. That probably would have just worked out better. But I mean, you never know how it's going to go with weather and stuff. So, that was definitely part of it as well. But, the race itself, I mean, only being able to attempt it once, that's okay. I mean, sometimes that's how it happens. So, yeah, we'll see. I guess it'll come around next year and we'll try to figure it out, try to do it again and see what we can do. So, there's, definitely plenty of other iRacing special events that happen throughout the year. So there'll be plenty of time to figure something out there. So, that is what it is sometimes. But, this week, iRacing, I guess on the oval side, got, all the NASCAR series at Atlanta, the Legends cars at North Wilkesboro. Interestingly, the ARCA series is at a road course, Circuito de Navarra here. IndyCar fixed series at Phoenix, their street or sports car side. MX5s at Laguna Seca. Got GR86 at Okayama. That's always a good one to hit up. The M2, which you've been doing at your sim place, at Laguna Seca this week. So, and the M2 Cup. So that should be interesting there. Production car challenge at Circuito de Navarra. IMSA iRacing series at the 24 Le Mans circuit. Let's see, the IMSA Endurance Series at Algarve International Circuit, Global Endurance Tour at the Le Mans 24-hour Le Mans circuit. Oh, the IMSA Sports Car Endurance Challenge. I don't know if is that even there. Oh, I guess no. It's in 2 weeks. That's the Road America 2-hour race. That's in 2 weeks. So not this week. And then Formula Car, you got open wheel, the Indy Pro 2000 at Okayama Circuit, the Formula Fords at Summit Point Raceway there, and Formula V's at Summit Point Raceway. So, and then I guess IndyCar Open Series at Iowa this week. So yeah, there's always plenty to do on iRacing. So probably be focusing more on road racing this week. Maybe hit up one of the IndyCar series. I don't have Atlanta. Maybe Atlanta's different than Talladega and Daytona, but I've never ran that series or ran the new Atlanta at. I don't even have the old Atlanta either on iRacing. So we'll see. We'll see what I decide to do this week on that front. So, but there's always plenty to do, whether you're a road racing fan or a oval racing fan, which, just happen to be a fan of both and have the experience of both and trying to be decent enough at both and be, all around on that end. So we'll see how that goes this week. But yeah, I have the iRacing stream up, of course. You can see how that ended on my Twitch page, UCailor2. Go on there and look at that when streamed that one on Saturday 12 noon for that attempt on iRacing. That was the fixed iRacing NASCAR series there, so you can go and watch that there and see how that turned out and how that played out. It's definitely, I mean, there was one part where somebody forgot to, I don't know how it happened, but their car didn't fill up with gas during the one green flag stop that we had. So immediately when he came out on pit road, he ran out of gas in turn one and then didn't tow truck and then just stayed on the apron for like 5 laps trying to hope to make it back to pit road, and had a little chuckle there because like, you may as well just tow truck. And he said, well, why? My race is over anyways. It doesn't matter. So unfortunate to have a tow truck there, or well, have to run out of gas in the Daytona 500 on iRacing. That's unfortunate, but that was a bit humorous there, unfortunately for that guy. But yeah, you can see that on my Twitch page, of course. And then, of course, I've been a little bit active trying to blow off the steam, just like we are today on Twitter with all the Daytona 500 tweets and all that stuff, which of course JP will find on there. And then of course our page, we have everything up, and we'll have this up on Grip Strip Podcast on YouTube. So yeah, I mean, Daytona 500, it's always something. I mean, I don't know if the right way to view it is it's like pizza. There's no truly bad pizza. All pizza's good pizza, or something like that. But there's definitely been better Daytona 500s, and this one was decent up until the end. So take that for what you will. But it is what it is, and always glad to see the Daytona 500 and go to the Daytona International Speedway. Regardless of all the circumstances. So glad to be able to be in the area to be able to attend that race, and all the other races there as well. So we'll come back next week, and we'll talk about Atlanta, and see if there's any differences between Daytona and Atlanta, which maybe there will be.
As long as it's not an Hendrick car winning, that'd be nice. I'll take that. Thanks as always, man, for all your contributions and all your takes and the insight, as always. For me, you can find me at on Twitter at PGMatthew28. You can find me on Blue Sky at PGMGSP28. Also on Instagram, I believe that's my PGMGSP28. And then you can find a YouTube page, personal YouTube page. You can find you'll know it because there's the Gripster podcast logo on there. The audio feeds go there, along with, of course, the Gripster podcast YouTube page, which has the video feeds of Josh handles. You can find the Gripster podcast at philipgmatthew.com. And yeah, I'll talk about exploits on the sim racing side on my end, and hopefully recovery in terms of my hand to try and get my bowling game to be a little more consistent as we get through the dog days of the season. And yeah, we will be back for episode 258 of the Grip Strip podcast to talk about Atlanta. We will also go through F175 IndyCar news. They're testing at Sebring, so we can recap the Sebring testing. And then the roundup, which will have what's it called? I don't know why I just did that. But it'll have the World Endurance Championship, World Superbike, Supercars, and Supercross. And then we'll make our picks for Coda. And then Josh will let us know all things going on in iRacing in the sim segment, and we'll call it day, and we will see whatever else is going on in the world of racing and sports on the Grip Strip podcast. So we thank you as always for listening, and we will see you next time.